everyone, and welcome to the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. Today, we're going to be broaching a subject, Chris, I think, that is going to polarize people more than any subject we've ever talked about, including the Wiccans and neo-pagans and what is those things that I collect from people? Chakras, that's right. You know, like in Star Wars, the Sith, they kill off all the Jedi and steal their lightsabers. I kill off all the New Agers and steal their chakras. They make lovely little beads that you can hang from your neck, you know?
Chakra rosaries.
Chakra rosaries, yeah. So today, the subject, if you may or may not have guessed from the little graphic that's in the Noel's Barred Witchcraft secret Facebook group that is vastly not becoming a secret, Chris. There's a lot of people in there now, and I'm suspecting that people have been a-talking. Like Fight Club. The first rule is you don't talk about Fight Club. Right, so today we're talking about all this retrograde bollocks. You know?
Yeah.
Like there's these things called the planets. They're like stars, but they're not actually stars. They go around stars. Our local star, a big one, is called the sun. The sun is a star. Some people don't know that.
I know.
Some people don't know the sun is actually a star. I think it's because they they do all the tarot reading. The tarot readers, Chris, some of them are not educated, like old cunning folk. They look at the sun card and they look at the star card and they say, no, the sun is not a star because it's the sun. And I say, go back and have a look through the rectangular window. So, today, astrology, more particularly, we're not talking about general astrology. What we're talking about is we're talking about these people that use astrology for the magic. And what they say is things like, oh, I cannot work the magic because Mercury is in retrograde. Or, oh, 'tis a dark moon? One can only work dark magics on a dark moon. Although I didn't realise, Chris, that Wiccans were allowed to do dark magic. I thought it was all love and light.
Yeah, well, I don't think they're allowed to.
Maybe
really.
it's just one day a year.
Okay.
You know, it's like that film. I forget what it is when you're allowed to go on a killing spree for one day of the year.
Oh,
The Purge. That's it. Yeah, The Purge. The Purge. Which isn't necessarily... I could get on board with that if we did a real life purge. I don't think I would be one of those people that we'd be hiding in like a panic room or something like that.
You'd be one of those in the scary mask going around killing people.
I'd have to have a mask. I'd have to have a scary mask, you know. And it would have to be like the same one each year. I would want to build a reputation, you know.
Oh, I just thought maybe we'll do Which Wars 25 or something like that, or be a magical purge.
Chris, why do you always take it too far? You know, we're getting a reputation for being naughty witches as it is. And I am a little concerned that if we did start getting people to not just kill one or two per people, because we did that in the first Witch Wars, but if we're trying to purge, you know, entire groups of like-minded individuals,
No.
I know that it would make the world a better place, but ethically speaking, it's a shady area.
Okay. I'll behave.
So, the idea of all this Mercury retrograde and that, can you explain a little bit about the new agey kind of Instagram, Facebook witch theory? Is it just because they read it in a book or something?
I'm assuming they read it in a book, but I'm not actually sure what book they would have read to say that, other than perhaps the Cunningham variety. But that's about the only thing, because I don't understand why it would be an issue, in the sense that technically retrograde is an illusion. It's not actually going backwards. So it just appears that way because of where it is in its cycle going around, going around the sun. So I don't quite understand why you would suddenly need to behave differently. So I get from an astrological point of view. So, if you're reading someone's birth chart and Mercury is in retrograde or any other planet is in retrograde at that point, because that's about the symbolism of the planets moving through the stars, and moving around through space. In which case you kind of go, okay, well, that position must mean something, because that's the whole point of astrology, is taking a look of what's actually appearing to happen in the solar system from our point of view, and then assigning, um, you know, problems and other things to that symbolism, because that's essentially what astrology is. It's not saying, oh, well, you were born under that, so therefore you've got more Pluto energy in you, or whatever. Although I shouldn't really say Pluto, should I? As it's been, is it downgraded or upgraded at this point?
I think it's still downgraded.
Okay,
Pluto's not a planet.
not currently a planet. Okay,
I think we currently class it as an abyss.
well, okay. Let's not confuse people and jump suddenly across
Okay.
to the Kabbalah. Um, but so what I don't understand is where people assign those those issues. Like, so in an astrological point of view, it makes sense because you're looking at it going, okay, well, that means that, this means that. Um, all these people with a Scorpio rising, all those folk. I can understand that because that's supposed to be a representation. It's not saying that Scorpio has done this to you in this particular, or the sun, you are full of the sun energy, um, but with a particular feel of Aquarius. Like, do you know what I mean? Like that isn't what astrology is about. It's about signs and symbols. Signs and symbols. Um, so in that particular moment, you're just pointing out that, oh, well, that's an omen to say that that particular person is going to develop this way. They're going to be a little psychopath because, Scorpio appears to be in their moon sign, or something like that.
Hey, Scorpio's in my moon phase sign, and I'm not a psychopath. I'm a sociopath,
Sociopath.
and there is a difference.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me. But yeah, so I don't quite understand how that then got attached to magical practice. So, the same way with the moon phases. To me, the best you can possibly use the moon phases for is for sympathetic magic where you're watching the moon change. Because at the end of the day, us seeing the moon in the sky is a reflection. So you're not actually so, what you see and don't see is based on an illusion by where the position of the sun is. The moon is always there. That's why the tides don't suddenly stop happening, because the moon is always there. So what I don't understand is when they assign these kind of moments, magical moments, um, to this sort of thing. So particularly with retrograde, because that's an illusion. The planet is not suddenly going backwards. So why should that matter? Um, Mercury's there available like it is the rest of the year. Um, Obviously, when it is closer, like that's an interesting point. Where if you're going to base what types of magic you practice based on where the planets are in terms of distance from us, I can kind of see something going on with that. But at the end of that it happens to be closer, so surely you don't have to pull as hard. But at the end of the day, with people like practitioners like ourselves, we wouldn't consider that because you'd just open a portal in the hallway and pull the energy through that you wanted to use at that particular time. So, we don't need to see the sun in the sky in order to actually use its energy, the same way you don't need Mercury to be visible to us for it to matter. So,
I think I know what the real reason is.
go on.
I think it's the chiropractors and the DIY aromatherapists. It's the
Okay.
same principle. You get a chiropractor
Yeah.
who knows a little bit about a specific thing, got qualifications in a thing, and they decide to speak with authority on every other fucking thing under the sun. So if you've got cancer, don't speak to your medical doctor because the chiropractor knows. The chiropractor's got your back, Chris. The chiropractor knows exactly what to do, and they can sell you something because they know. And then the stuff the chiropractor says is a lot like if you've ever joined a group which has got a lot of people that are really interested in exploring the health benefits of essential oils and aromatherapy. They get a little bit of some sort of rather shite study that's normally done by someone like a chiropractor, and then they milk it for all it's worth by making memes and then passing it along. Has your child got autism? Well, all you need is a little bit of a lavender essential oil and they'll be
Magically
almost like a
cured.
normal person. It's how they'd normally sell it. And I think that this translates into astrology and the magic.
Yeah.
Because astrologers try to learn from the planets and ancient lore and the like in order to read. They use astrology, planets, all that is kind of like a language. What they then try to do is, in a really rather shit way, translate that over to magical practice when none of them, I've never met an astrologer that's been any good at magic.
Yeah.
None of them really have much grounding in astrology, much like a chiropractor trying to become a GP.
Yeah.
Because you know that whenever there's a dodgy product, particularly I've seen some of these American adverts and that, where it's got an actual doctor that's coming on saying, I approve this, you find out the doctor they are is an ND, naturopathic doctor or
Yeah.
chiropractor, and they're not actually a GP,
Yeah.
they're not a
They're not
medical
doctor.
doctor. Yeah. There's a certain essential oil company that we really like and sell their products, and their head of the science department is a doctor such and such.
Yep.
And I found out that actually he's a chiropractor, but he dresses himself up in a lab coat with a stethoscope to make himself look like a medical doctor. But there we go. I mean, we might be going off on a tangent, so we'll stick to it. So if I put that in the context of this astrology, what we've got is we've got a lot of people that kind of study ancient astrology and the like, and they don't really move with the science, and they don't really think, oh, we're understanding a little bit more about the planets and the like. So what they do is they end up missing the original lore and secrets and mysteries around the original astrology by the ancients, because they don't fucking understand that. And they're trying to cobble it together into some kind of system which is normally ignoring scientific principles often.
Yeah.
And then what they do is try to marry it up with a science, with a magic and occultism and the like. So what you get is you get some complete idiot that is a little good at doing natal charts.
Yeah.
You know? And they can give you a little bit of information. They're the sort of person that said, oh yes, I predicted COVID. Because they said, well, I told lots of clients last year that they were going to be ill. And you think, no, this is not the sort. I've seen so many. There's a certain hoodoo podcast where they go on about this sort of thing, where they make astrology predictions and the like. And then it comes up as, retrospectively they inflate the readings that they give from before, because whenever I see astrology and astrology readings, they tend to be accurate but very, 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 very not much detail in it.
Yeah.
And then what the people do is sometimes they'll branch out, as we've seen the psychics branch out. They'll branch out to do magical work, and they'll try and understand the mysteries of the ancients and get a lot of it wrong. And what they won't understand is they won't understand the perspective of magical practitioners such as witches like us, where we say, I want to do something, I will fucking do it, and I will do it in whatever way works.
Yeah.
So rather than thinking about, I think I understand, because there's got Cunningham book talks about the secret laws of the universe, and when this planet appears to be going backwards in the sky, well, everyone says that planet rules this, which means it must be in charge of that, even though it's a rock. It must be. It must be in charge of that because the Scott Cunningham book said it was, and
Yeah.
lots of other people say it is. Therefore, it must be. Therefore, I'm going to program that into my spells because I believe it.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the last point because we can equate this also with that old Wickham Reed thing about,
Yeah.
oh well, free, you know, things will be thrice as bad if I do something bad, which basically means if you do a spell and you feel guilty, you've attached a bungee rope to that spell,
Yeah.
so that it goes off and then it'll come back again and hit you in the face.
Yeah.
But there we
Yeah.
go.
But
We
going
can't
back
be
slight
giving them away the secrets
go back
of
slightly
that on
to
this podcast episode.
going back slightly to that, to the sense of understanding their misunderstanding of, obviously we name the energy after these planets. It is not therefore saying that the energy necessarily comes from that planet, which I think is part of the problem that people don't quite understand. So
Yeah. The logo of the football team, yeah, the mascot, that ain't the fucking football team. That's symbolic of the football team. Yeah, it
yeah,
stands on the side. And it
yeah,
might be like one of those things where it comes on first and you cheer it and that. And it goes out and in a leaflet's out. And little, I don't know, stress balls with the logo of the football team on and that. But it ain't the football team, right? What we're talking about is we're just talking about displaying magical principles and the like in the form of a language. And that
yeah,
language that we generally commonly use is a planets and astrology and the like
yeah,
because it doesn't matter where you are in the world, humans have always kind of looked at the sky. So it is a good thing, you know, to do. But people are kind of missing that. But there we go. We should teach a course on astrology, Chris. Imagine how amazing that would be. That would be
oh,
so cool.
the thing is, it wouldn't be astrology though. I think that's the problem.
Well, we could teach a course on modern ancient astrology.
Okay,
So ancient astrology from a modern magical practitioner's perspective.
that does sound good.
Because we use the planets and that, don't we?
We use
But
the
we don't
planets.
do you ever do astrology? Do you ever do astrology?
I'm trying to think the last time I did. I often use astrological symbols and that as a language to explain to a client how something works, but that's not what I would call astrology. I don't think you're really personally, I don't think you're doing astrology unless you are, knee deep in calculations, because to me that is the science part, the logos, the theology part at the end of that has to be applying that science. Otherwise, it's not. You know, that's why it's not astromancy. Astromancy it is astrology. It's the study of. So if you're not actually, you know, doing doing the actual calculations, then I don't really see myself as doing astrology. Um, Whereas, applying astronomy to my magical practice, which is, I think, what people get the confusion with. I think that's part of it, is that they mix up the idea of signs and symbols with actual astronomy, actual movements of the planets, um, in order to actually, and I think somewhere along the lines, they get conflated and confused. Um, so, saying that, the only exception I would probably make is to things like eclipses, but that's because they're uber, uber cool. Um, so I get quite excited. Only the big ones, the solar ones. I don't really get all excited about lunar eclipses, but the big solar ones, because that is such a change of perspective. For the sunlight to literally just disappear for a few moments in the middle of the day. How could you not take that as some kind of, you know, celestial event that you have to kind of pay attention to, or Halley's Comet coming back, or one of the big ones that only comes only so many hundreds of years. I could kind of see tying magical things to it. So it's
Yeah.
probably that's the bit I was more getting at, as opposed to using the energy of the moment, but um, tying a powerful spell to a movement like that would be, that sort of stuff interests and gets me cogs a turning. Otherwise, it's just another day at the office, isn't it? Surely.
Well, people will get a little bit confused, I think, because obviously the planets, the moon, all that they do have an effect on the Earth and on everyday life. When you've got talk about the moon particularly, we understand how it can change women parts and the ocean and the tide and the like, that sort of thing. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that are very angry about to comment on their keyboard saying, well, astrology is a thing because it affects this, and this. What we're talking about is, yes, there are scientific observations that you can make that the planets that do stuff. They make pretty patterns in the sky by their motions and all that sort of stuff. There's more and more and more things that we're finding that actually planets and the like, Jupiter, for example, not blue, associated with blue, apparently emits a blue light now, from what I've heard. Science has been saying that there's a blue light or some radiation or some shit like that emanates from Jupiter. What I'm saying is, think of the planets as tools. Tools. No, not our Wiccan friends. Not tools like them. Tools like, your... I was going to say chalice then. Tools like your cauldron
Oh, see, I was
or your
thinking more like
mortar
a
and
hoe
pestle.
in the garden. A hoe.
Yeah, obviously witches, what we'll do is we'll notice energetic changes and the like in the atmosphere, in the surroundings, and that they could be created by many, many, many different things. Cycles within cycles within cycles. And very often when we're doing a magic, in order to power that magic, we'll often link that to those power sources. Yeah? So when you're talking about seasons and that sort of thing, the magic behind some of these seasonal celebrations and rituals and the like, then yes, there's magic there that's utilising the energy that's at play. Now, when it comes to astrology and the ideas of you can't do this because of this rule that Western astrologers think of, that's not true, okay? So if you want to use the planets as inspiration, as a placeholder, so for example, if you want to pull astral energy through the moon and use the moon as a gateway to do that at night time, that's fine, go ahead and do that, that'll work quite well. But what's going to happen, and what we tend to see, is we see all of these kind of memes that come out, these rules of thumbs that are based on kind of ways of reading astrology that real life astrologers might not necessarily read. Is the amateur astrologers that have read one
Yeah.
book on astrology, that pick up these little things and then they start trying to add it to their magical practice. And sometimes it will actually end up causing trouble. Is in the Mercury retrograde thing, I've met a lot of people at this point that are scared to death of casting any sort and doing any sort of magic when Mercury looks like it's going backwards in the sky. Which is funny because these people never even look at the sky. They don't know
Yeah.
Mercury's going retrograde unless
Yeah.
everyone on social media is saying, oh, Mercury's retrograde, Mercury's retrograde. And then they say, oh, I'm glad you told me that. Raven, whatever your name is, because it always starts with a raven or something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's always a
I
bird.
won't do that magical ritual I was going to plan because obviously it'll go to shit. And I'm thinking, fucking hell. I mean, seriously? Call yourself a witch. But I know there's quite a lot of things that we need to unpack within this. And there's also something that's popped up on my screen that I've got to get off my chest because it's just rather... I don't know whether it's amused me or annoyed me. but it's also to do with the same sort of social media witches. But I'll leave that for the Patreon. You know, spirits are dancing naked and causing trouble on a cycle track. That sounds like something for the Patreon, doesn't it, Chris?
uh, but yeah, I can, like I said, we're not saying don't make observances, don't look up at the sky. Those all have important impacts if you want to include that in your work. What we're saying is don't listen to a meme on Instagram or Facebook that is telling you you can't do a certain kind of magic because there is an illusion in the sky of Mercury going backwards. So, that's what we're trying to say, is pointing out that that is a signifier, it's an omen. If you want to use that omen in your practice in order to react differently during that time, it might change the way if you happen to actually work with a mercurial spirit like Mercury, or Hermes or Thoth, or any of those that you might consider. I went to say Odin then because all the memes say that Odin is apparently a mercurial spirit. I don't understand how that works myself. However, anyway,
Well, maybe. I mean, he was made up, wasn't he?
so is he a trickster just on the basis that he was made up?
Well,
Because that's about the only connection I can think of.
I think it's because they consider him to be a teacher of magic, and Mercury's often a teacher of magic, and he's
Yeah,
teaches
but
magic in
Odin
a
doesn't
trick.
know the first thing about magic.
Well, didn't Odin sell one of his eyes in order to become wise?
Yes, to gain knowledge. So he didn't know it. So, just doesn't mean that, whereas, you've got the likes of Freya, who is pretty much magic incarnate, or Hecate, those sorts of people who are magic incarnate, you can't equate that same magnitude to Odin, the Christian created All Father. I don't think you can, who had to had to rip out one of his eyes in order to gain some knowledge, and not even great knowledge at that point. Anyway, going off, we were supposed to make rants about the Norse pantheon on a different podcast, so let's not do that here. But my point is, you know, maybe it changes the way if you are observing it, but like Liam said, if you are taking it into consideration into your practice, you should be looking up at the sky as part of your practice if that's why you're taking that into consideration. If you're just going by the witch's almanac, or one of those other shitty things that comes out of Llewellyn that tells you need to do something like that specifically, then I really think you should be taking another hard look at your practice and see if you're doing things because a book has told you to, or because you've actually got a magical reason for wanting to do it that way. There you go. I did the rant for a change.
I'm trying to find, because this was specifically asked by a certain someone, and I can't
Oh, okay.
remember because they wanted us to cover a couple of things, and I'm trying to work out exactly where it was that they put it, because they put it on a comment. I think it
I
was
say
one of the.
the big ones that normally come up, aren't they, are the dark moon, um, eclipses, and Mercury retrograde are the main ones that people get all their knickers in a bunch over the fact that those observances are occurring. And we've already covered, particularly with the moon, it's a case of the moon is present, and it doesn't half of it doesn't just magically disappear at different parts of the month. The moon is always there, it is always having an effect. That is the reason why you can see it in the ocean tides, why you can see it in the behavior of women with their menses. All of that is down to the fact that it is there as a permanent fixture, zooming around the planet every day. So,
Right, well, we're out of time, so what we've got to do now is say goodbye to our regular listeners. And if they want to watch, well, not watch, but if they want to listen to the extended edition of this podcast or any of the others, they'll have to join the Thoth Witchcraft Patreon. Bye, everyone.